Ah, there you are. Pull up a chair by the fireside. I'm going to tell you a story, but it's not for the faint of heart. My name is Julia Norton, and you're listening to Dark and Twisty Tales, a weekly telling of the lesser-known and more grisly folk stories and fairy tales. Are you sitting comfortably? Then I shall begin. The Little Match Girl. It was so dreadfully cold. It was snowing, and the evening was beginning to grow dark. It was also the last evening of the year, New Year's Eve. In this cold and in this darkness, a poor little girl was walking in the street, bareheaded and barefooted. True enough, she had been wearing slippers when she'd left home, but what was the good of that? They'd been very big slippers. Her mother had worn them last, so big were they. And these the little girl had lost in hurrying across the street when two carriages had passed by at dreadful speed. One of the slippers was nowhere to be found, and a boy had run off with the other. He had said he'd be able to use it for a cradle when he got children of his own. And so there walked the little girl, in her little bare feet, that were so red and blue with cold. In an old apron she held a lot of matches, and she had one bundle in her hand. No one had bought any from her all day long. No one had even given her a copper. Hungry and frozen she went, looking so very, very sad, the poor little thing. The snowflakes fell on her long golden hair, which curled so beautifully around her neck, though it was a sight which she certainly never thought about. Lights shone out from all the windows, and in the street there was a lovely smell of roast goose. It was New Year's Eve. She did think of that. In a corner between two houses, one of which jutted a little farther out into the street than the other, she stopped and crouched down. She drew her little legs up under her, but only froze the more, and she dared not go home. She hadn't sold any matches, and hadn't got a single copper. Her father would beat her, and even at home it was cold. They had no more than the roof over their heads, and the wind whistled through that, stuffed though it was with straw and rags in the biggest cracks. Her little hands were very nearly dead with cold. Oh, a little match might do some good. If only she dared to pull one out of the bundle, strike it against the wall and warm her fingers. She pulled one out. Tss! How it spluttered, how it flared up. It was a warm, clear flame, just like a little candle when she held her hands around it. It was a wonderful candle. The little girl seemed to be sitting in front of a big iron stove, with polished brass knobs and a brass drum. The fire burnt so beautifully, and was so warming. I say, what was that? The little girl was stretching out her feet in order to warm them as well, when the flame went out. The stove vanished, and she sat with a little stump of the burnt-out match in her hand. A new one was struck. It burnt, it shone, and where the glow fell on the wall, it became transparent as gauze. She saw right into the room where the table was laid with a glistening white tablecloth, with fine china, and with a lovely steaming roast goose, stuffed with prunes and apples. And even grander still, the goose jumped off the dish and waddled along the floor with a knife and fork in its back, right up to the poor little girl it came. Then the match went out, and all that could be seen was the thick, cold wall. She struck a fresh one, and now she was sitting under the loveliest of Christmas trees. It was even bigger and more prettily decorated than the one she'd seen through the glass door of the rich merchant the Christmas before. Thousands of candles were alight on the green branches, and brightly coloured pictures, such as decorated the shop windows, looked down towards her. The little girl stretched both her hands into the air, and then the match went out. The Christmas candles all went higher and higher, and she saw that they were bright stars. Some of them fell, leaving a long fiery strip in the sky. Someone's dying, said the little girl. For old Granny, the only person who had been good to her, but who was dead, had said that when a star falls, a soul rises up to God. She struck another match against the wall. It shone brightly round about, and in its glow stood her old Granny, so clear, so shining, so gentle and so loving. "Granny," cried the little girl, "please take me with you. I know you'll be gone when the match goes out, gone like the warm stove, the lovely roast goose, and the gorgeous big Christmas tree." And hurriedly she struck all the matches left in the bundle. She wanted so much to keep her Granny. And the matches shone with such splendour that it was brighter than the light of day. Granny had never before been so beautiful and so big. Lifting the little girl onto her arm, she flew with her in radiance and glory so high, so very, very high, and there was no cold, no hunger, no fear. They were with God. But there in that corner by the house in the cold early morning sat the little girl with rosy cheeks and a smile on her lips, dead. Frozen to death on the last evening of the old year. The morning of the new year rose on that little body sitting with the matches, one bundle of which was almost burnt. She'd wanted to warm herself, they said. No one knew what beauty she had seen, or in what radiance she had gone with her old Granny into the glad new year. Thank you for listening to Dark and Twisty Tales. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe on iTunes, rate, review, and share with all your friends. You can also get more information about me, Julia Norton, at julianorton.com. So, until the next time, bye. Bye.